so much for attending and for also taking part in the METS today. And we hope that you find this session interesting and enlightening. My name is Simon Adams. I'm part of the communications team here at DNV Maritime. I'm speaking to you from Hamburg and very pleased to be acting as your host today. With me is Benjamin Witt, our team lead environmental, who will be taking us through this interesting new part of the maritime industry that can not only work to help companies who are aiming to reduce their carbon footprints and meet international and national regulatory targets, but has the potential to create new business models and enhance and expand the market for green and sustainable services in shipping. It's something that I think we're going to be focusing a lot more as we in the years to come in shipping. And so I'm really pleased to have you all with us today. So an important note, we'll have our presentation first, and then will have time for a Q&A session. Please pop any questions that come to you throughout the presentation into the chat box, and then we'll run through those as many as we can with Benjamin at the end of the session. So without any further delay, Benjamin, I hand it over to you.
Thanks a lot, Simon. Can you hear me good and well? Hopefully. Okay. Yeah, welcome and thank you for joining. We saw starting this summit with Zemba and their CEO Ingrid, and she mentioned something interesting in the last of her sentences, that this concept of insetting creates a win-win-win situation. And taking this sentence, and I hope I can give you in the next 50 minutes and some insights why this can create some win-win-win. But let's start with some boring stuff. There is no real definition for carbon insetting, but there is per se. So this definition on the carbon inset is emission reduction which happens during maritime transportation and with the usage of renewable fuel. So as a shipping company, you can sell those carbon reductions then to your customers in a voluntary market. And this is one of the key important things, the voluntary market and scope 3 reduction for the own sustainability reporting at the end. Using then book and claim as a chain of custody model, which is also this is then given in a definition by the ISO. But I think everybody has heard about offsetting, and the difference between offsetting and insetting. Everybody knows we can plant trees in Africa and you get your CO2 reduction certificates, which means it is you invest in some external projects and you get this kind of certificate on your greenhouse gas reduction, which is an indirect reduction. But on the inset side, the cargo owner invests in their own value chain and gets direct greenhouse gas reduction in form of a certificate and using a mass balance approach. So by saying so, we have a book and claim systems, and book and claim systems, when we talk about biofuels, we need to consider two streams. One is a direct physical link from the biofuel to the vessel to your cargo owner, but the other one is disconnecting the link between the transport and the green service or a voluntary service you offer based on certificate. And here, so-called book and claim systems allow you to offer green services based on certification without changing your complete supply chain. This gives you kind of flexibility to both sides. One is, of course, the cargo owner when they want to invest into their own green value chain, and the ship owner is flexible in when and where and which vessel will be used for the clean fuels. Because we all know, due to geographical reasons, it's not always biofuel available everywhere. So meaning you can use the attributes and forward that to your clients. How this could look in a more simple way, let me try to explain. So we have a shipping company and we have different cargo owners. But you have one cargo owner who wants to be part of their decarbonization transition and they pay extra. They pay extra and they pay premium for their own cargo. So meaning the ship owner is not able to get biofuel for all the vessels. You have different vessels, you have different fuels. But still, as a shipping company, you can still offer green service to your cargo owner. With the transportation, of course, the cargo on the biofueled vessel will be forwarded to one cargo owner. And of course, this was transported green. But due to now a book and claim system, which is set up and in-house, you can forward the environmental attributes on the scope 3 to your cargo owner where you have the contract with. So meaning, of course, we talk always on a well-to-wake basis, but meaning and looking at this very high level and simple principle, as a shipping owner, you are able to offer a green service and disconnect the scope 3 emissions from the transport. Different models coming now into the game, and I will not go in detail on that slide, but you can have a look on the ship owner side. And what I just presented, the ship owner can forward the emission reduction to the cargo owner. We have another, we see another business model coming, that fuel provider as well, looking at scope 3 reductions for trading and having contracts with the ship owner who are waiving the ownership of the emissions. And we have registries offering service between the ship owner, the fuel provider, and the cargo owner. The only thing what I need to mention is how important, when you see different business models, it is needless to mention that the key in all is a trustable and transparent verification. So in every time you receive a certificate, every time you want to issue a certificate, it needs to be transparent, it needs to be proven that it's sustaining the fuel, and it needs to be proven that the fuel has been used. Then, I just listened in to Erwind and Johannes Schürmann from Finco, and he just mentioned that this is one of the most important topics at the moment for the voluntary market. And if Maritime wants to be successful with book and claim, then additionality should be on the agenda. So meaning, what is additionality? Additionality is a criterion for looking into whether a solution on CO2 savings is required by regulation. So meaning FuelEU sets a mandate on greenhouse gas intensity, or is it in addition? So looking at that example, FuelEU now sets the baseline on 89.3. And if the vessel is not compliant and uses now green fuel, biofuels, bio-LNG to comply with that baseline, the part of which is mandated by the regulation cannot be used to forward to the scope as scope 3 reduction. So meaning that is one of the important things to look at now when it comes to verification and transparency, that what was used, what is mandated on by regulation, and what is really in addition. So meaning without this voluntary project, without this voluntary market, green fuel has to be used anyway. So should that be sold as green service? That is the key question also on the verification. And if we look at the verification and the process, it starts with the bunkering. Of course, you have to bunker the fuel. With the fuel, it is the B30, it's a B100, it's a blend, it's a pure bio. You receive a lot of documentation. You have the BDN, you have your proof of sustainability, you have the supplier declaration, so meaning the POS and the BDN needs to be linked to the vessel. It needs to be clear that the vessel has that certain fuel from the POS on board and also is then burned. That brings then to the part of the verification. Either you have the noon reporting, you have data that you can prove that the fuel is burned. That allows the verifier, like DNV, give you a certain credit, the saving based on the emission factor, which is stated on the proof of sustainability, which gives you then a certain service in your book and claim system, in your registry, in your in-house bank. And based on that, you can claim and retire this CO2. Important here is that retirement statement has to be owned uniquely by the cargo owner. So meaning it should be clear that there is no double booking, no double counting of greenhouse gas emission, and it's owned uniquely by your client or your customer. Based on that, we have a very strict process in place where we look at in initial audit, looking at really at the systematic, at the calculation, at the methodology. Then when that is fixed, we have a regular verification with where we look at the bunkering events once a month, once a quarter. After that, you define, or the client has to define, who gets the saving and the verification. So that's a process which is quite established the last years, and where we try to make sure to be as transparent as possible, and there is no double booking, no greenwashing happening. Looking back, and it was a really, really quick walkthrough, but what is important? You must have a proof of sustainability. So the biofuel needs to be sustained according to the RED II. It is a voluntary market. There is a lack of standards and regulations, so there is actually no regulation. Therefore, there is a risk of greenwashing. There is a challenge to find the real baseline against you want to measure. Everything needs to be accepted by the cargo owner at the end of the day. It can be that the scope 3 rights could be sold already by the fuel provider, so meaning you have to look at the BDN nodes. There is always a risk of double counting and greenwashing. The devil is in the detail, of course, but if you have questions, or if this is an interesting part for you, then let us know. We have a webpage, and send an email, invite us for a call. That was a very quick, so we can go through a more detailed presentation if you like. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Benjamin. I'll just remind everybody that we will still have a few minutes for the
Oh, Simon, your sound is.
Is my sound okay?
Your sound is okay, yes.
Sorry. Just a reminder to everybody, you can keep typing in. We have some time set aside here for our Q&A, and you can keep running those in, and we'll get to as many as we can. So maybe we start off. We had quite a few questions. Thanks so much for that, everybody, so far. And really starting at the basis, why do we consider biofuels sustainable? Which ones are we talking about, and what are we talking about in CO2 reductions for them?
Now we consider biofuels sustainable if they're sustainable according to the RED. So if the biofuel is certified and brings the proof of sustainability, mostly as common as ISCC or RSB, then we consider this biofuel as sustained, and this will be taken for the scope 3 reduction and insetting systematics.
So that is to clarify, there are some standards already in place for what qualifies and what the factors are that apply to a biofuel. Of course, I guess the most common is we see now is in blended biofuels. We had a question there for this. Are we speaking purely of, say, conventional fuel biofuels, or are we also including here something like bio LNG or even electrofuels, or does this cover the whole scope of?
Yeah. Bio LNG is of course also possible, but then you have to compare bio LNG with fossil LNG, which you replace, and you can get the benefits of the replacement. So it's possible, of course. But what I did not mention, and I just saw it in one of the questions, all certificates and all reduction certificates you get and receive, and you cannot use this for regulatory compliance. So you cannot use it for your CII, you cannot use it for FuelEU compliance. This is completely voluntary, and that is something to remember.
And we've got another one here, gone in our basics. Could conceivably you use and have an insetting assessment that reflects other types of emissions reduction measures?
Not for the biofuel, and I don't know any which gives you reductions for implementing technical measures, for example. I know there is some different standards out which might focus on that, but no, not for the insetting and not for the scope 3.
I think, as you mentioned, the scope 3 reduction, we've got this question here from Jan. Many customers who are committed to SBTI are holding back from purchasing biofuels as it does not acknowledge these as scope 3 reductions. Do we know if this is going to be acknowledged or changed in the future?
No, I know SBTI is in that sense a bit strict, and you cannot use it now. While I have read that SBTI also is looking into accepting insetting, not offsetting. So SBTI will not accept offsetting, meaning what I tried to show the plants and plant trees in Africa. But I think there are rumors that it might be possible to use insetting. But to be honest, we have to look up. But SBTI is different than the Greenhouse Gas Protocol and the scope 3. Even we talk about the same and similar reductions.
So we had another couple of relatively technical questions here. Do we have insights on the additionality for biofuels within the Dutch HPE system and the POC?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know now that the HPE system, even the POS is sent to the Dutch system, can be used for EU ETS and FuelEU. That was just recently announced. For the voluntary insetting, it's a good question. I don't have the answer yet, that should be discussed in detail, to be honest.
I think probably a good reminder that this is still very new for everybody, especially under these new regulations, and so a lot of the stuff is still evolving. But thanks for that excellent question. Here's another one: is BNC allowed under FuelEU? Of course, FuelEU, a big topic.
No. Open claim, you cannot use it now for FuelEU. The only role FuelEU plays is when we talk about additionality in the voluntary market. So because FuelEU gets the mandate on the fuel, and that has to be checked for the voluntary market.
So that's the Scope 3 inset certificates you cannot use for FuelEU pooling. Is that also the same for EU ETS compliance?
Yes, you cannot use it.
So we have some definition there. You spoke before about the greenwashing risks associated potentially with insetting and pooling. Well, not pooling and with insetting. Maybe we could speak a little bit more on that. Why this could be a concern.
It can be a real concern when it comes to a wrong baseline. So meaning you calculate yourself savings which are not there, basically. Mm-hmm. It can be that if you don't have a system in place that really keeps track on your emissions, and that it can happen accidentally, of course, that someone sends greenhouse gas saving certificates to different clients, many clients. So then we have savings which never happened and have never been there. And this would bring companies making themselves greener as they are and finding savings which have not happened. And that's the very critical discussion. And we have a lot of discussions on how to set the correct baseline for those voluntary market. There are different baselines giving in the RED 2. It's 94. It's 89.3 by FuelEU. We don't. It is up to the client to talk with the cargo owner. What is their reporting the last year on Scope 3 and decide, and then be transparent on the certificate against what baseline are you measuring yourself. So it is not black and white, and it's not trivial. No.
Yeah, we had another sort of additional one on that, on traceability systems to combat this. I guess this is something I'm not familiar with UDB, but perhaps you are.
No, I don't know what UDB is, but I agree that it should be a common system, a global system in the market. Right now we have a bit freestyle, a bit Western world. Everybody sets up systems, everybody can reduce Scope 3, but there's no regulation out. So a global database could be helpful.
This is one of the things where we think that, of course, that it's verified, transparent data is absolutely essential for these kind of markets, because I guess otherwise then people don't know what they're getting. They don't, and if you're doing the right things, you can't demonstrate it to the market with the trust that's required.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the most important thing. You have to have trust in the certificate you receive, and as more information you give, as better.
Yeah. Let's see. Can we use book and claim for US generated biofuel on EU carrier owned ships?
Sure, you can. If the fuel is sustained according to the RED, again, if you have the proof of sustainability. And that also brings us to the other question here is, say EU, US, meaning if your vessel is sailing in US waters, then you don't need to look at additionality for FuelEU measures. So meaning there's a different baseline. So that makes the verification a bit more complex in the future. That you have to look at the geographical patterns of the trading patterns of the vessel. So if the savings happened in US or if the saving happened into EU, that can become a different.
Yeah, it all points to a much more. I think we also had this question around there. How do we think the biofuel insetting and regulatory measures around this kind of biobunkering and fueling? I guess when it's established within the EU as a market, if that is going to then translate and spread out into the energy landscape for shipping beyond the EU, how big of a market and how big of an impact do you think this could have in bunkering and fuels overall?
I don't know if the voluntary market really impacts the bunkering market, but it can influence for sure the thinking of cargo owner and vessel owner, and by choosing trading patterns with biofuel, and then maybe give that an extra push for sure.
I think we did have some quite interesting data on one of the other sessions around the growth and scale in biofuel bunkering, especially in Singapore, which has gone from nothing to almost half the entire market there. I think they suggested something like a 4x growth just in the last 3 years, which I think is incredibly impressive. Let's see, have we got time for maybe one or two other questions? Let's have a look. Yeah, I mean, we talked about the FuelEU impacting the broader maritime fuel. What about for different sectors? Is there potential for Scope 3 certificates to be cross-sectoral, so beyond the maritime to other transport sectors, for example?
Yeah, that's so if you reduce your carbon footprint in maritime, you can forward that, of course, but it has to stay in a sector. So meaning the maritime reduction stays in maritime. If there's a road transport, it stays in road transport sector. So you cannot swap and you cannot trade between road, aviation, or maritime. I mean, this whole book and claim is not a new thing. It's for ages in aviation and for a long time in road. And yeah, but still it has to be kept separate. And therefore, again, it's important to see when and where was the fuel used, in which transport mode. Was it maritime? Was it road? And be clear on the certificate, on your calculations, how these greenhouse gas saving were calculated, and yeah, it has to be stated correctly.
So have we got any further questions from the audience? I suggest to pop those in now. Otherwise, as Benjamin said, you can click on we have a button there for the find out more, which will take you to our biofuel insetting page, and you can reach out to contact Benjamin or the other departments who are working on this topic.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks so much.
Then thank you.
So we really appreciate you attending. We hope you got a lot out of this session and also the METS as a whole. Really appreciate you taking time. And thank you so much to Benjamin for being with us today. And we have a lot of resources on the DNV website, which I encourage you to check out, both in decarbonisation and also our class and advisory services. If you like our webinar formats, there is the webinar series that we run from time to time on many different topics, including a lot on FuelEU and other regulations. MEPC, I think, is coming up soon. And those are all free and available to download after the fact as well. So that's one way you can get up. Oh, here we go. Maybe one last one from Nikita here. Ethical considerations relating to biofuel. I know this is often a question that comes up.
Yeah, and it's ethical, and how you define. Of course, RED defines that you cannot use the palm oil, for example, but still you can use palm waste, and it is for sure an ethical question and consideration. And we know we have, for example, some car producers who are really have specification on what kind of fuel has to be used on the vessel. So meaning no palm oil residue, no waste. Then yeah, it has to be considered, but it's not considered in the calculation, of course.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely concerns around land use and other things that displacing agriculture for food production and many things like that. But this, I think, is something that is being worked on and worked out and will evolve as this we see more biofuel use and other sustainable maritime fuels. Anyway, once again, thank you so much. Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you, all of our attendees. Check out more of the information that we have on dnv.com on our maritime websites. And we hope you have a fantastic day, morning, afternoon, wherever you've joined us from. And hopefully we'll see you again soon. Take care. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.